Hey everyone, and welcome to a different kind of devlog today. I wanted to go over this experimental project that I've been working on for the past week or so. If you saw the last video, you kind of know what this is about. I've been really busy the past few weeks working on updating the NPC manager and PCG and trying to get them to synergize. So I wanted to take a little break and look at something different, and I've been wanting to look at chaos vehicles. So I opened the advanced vehicle project in 4.26 chaos, so everything's enabled. It started just playing around with it. So I wanted to give you guys an overview of kind of what I've been working on, what I think would be cool to add, and obviously you can see in the name it's called Free Eraser. I think I'll probably release this for free if I see there's interest, especially in the AI. Not on me driving around, but specifically on the little racing AI. It may help somebody if you wanted to do something like that in your game, so why not? Good news. I actually, so far from my test, looks like the Chaos vehicles seem more stable than the physics vehicles. That's actually really good. I don't really like the default physics vehicles that come with Unreal. It seems very unstable, so I think this feels a lot better. So obviously, as I was testing, I was running around on the little default track that comes with the project, and I wanted to create my own track so I could test the different settings, like if I have like really sharp turns, etc. So I decided to create a little track generator, something I've had in the back of my mind as something fun to do. Maybe I'm dating myself, but there used to be this really old game back in the NES era. I have it right here, called Excitebike. I know it looks pretty crappy here, but it used to be really fun way back in the day. And the most fun thing for me, and what blew my mind way back when I used to play this, was that you could actually create your own tracks in the game, right? I think that was the first game I remember that has some kind of customization. So the way this game did it is very simple. It had like little segments, and the game would play, and then you would select like which segment you would want to lay down next. And some segments would have like a little ramp, some segments would have like a little dirt trap, etc. So just for fun, I wanted to do something like that, because it seemed like, again, something really fun to add as I was testing my little chaos vehicle. So what I did is I created this very simple blueprint called BPTrack. And if I lay it there, you'll see that I have a couple of things. I have a segment map, again, thinking about the same method, where I have different blueprints that have different segments. And what I did is I assigned a little code, a string code to each blueprint, which is a segment. So you have three different blueprints, like S1 basically refers to the straight tiny segment, S2 is like straight short, and S3 is like straight long, and then R45, you probably guessed it, right turn 45 degrees, R90, right turn 90 degrees. And the idea was, add left turns, add ramps, add things like that, and then you have all these different segments. And then really quickly here, and I don't even have all the buttons here, you could then start using the little buttons here, and then start spamming different segments. So you can see here, as I'm just pressing the buttons, I can just start adding tracks. And I only have right turn, so unfortunately there's not much I can do right now, but you get the point. You can build something here, and these are splines, so technically you see here I can actually move these, if I really wanted to. So that was the idea, a way to like quickly create tracks. Another thing is, if I have them all in a map, then I can click on like random track, and obviously I don't have anything there to prevent this kind of overlap, but you could have like how many random segments, and they'll just grab like random segments from here and lay them out together. And again, if I really polish it, I could have like a little track generator that you can run at runtime, and do something like that. But the cool thing I thought about this was that because I have these codes per segment, I could actually build a track based on a quote-unquote track code. So if I did something like S3 S3 R45 S3 and click on generate track, you can see that it's actually using my code here to lay down 2 straight long segments, then 45 right and another straight long. Oops. Which means that now that we can do this, theoretically we can share codes, right? If this was eventually developed way more, maybe other people could share the, design their own tracks and share their code. And maybe you can, kind of like Mario Maker in a way, you could have like your own little track code, and then you can share it. And in this case, I'm gonna paste one that was already pre-made. I had there on my other screen. Say somebody gives you this code, you click on generate track, and all of a sudden you have a custom track that somebody else built just by getting this long string. And obviously this is just laying out these tracks, but you could go crazy with this and you could add obstacles like ramps and things like that. You could make it really interactive and just share like your string code somewhere and people could do this. Or even a step further, maybe even do this at runtime in a multiplayer setting where people could design their own tracks and put them out there and people can play it. So again, this is super silly, but it didn't take me that long and I just always wanted to do this. But again, this is all for me testing the Chaos vehicles. So I wanted to have a way to quickly create different kinds of tracks. So this is just, again, mostly for fun, but I wanted to get your take on it. Do you think this is something cool that you'll be interested in seeing? Should I develop this a little bit more, create more segments? Do you think this is even useful for a project that you're working on? I don't know. I'm just, again, did it for fun, but wanted to show you here to see if this was actually useful. Anyway, what I think you guys will probably find more useful was the next step was, well, now that I have a little track that I can, race around, maybe I don't want to do it by myself. Maybe I can do like a little AI that would just follow the track. And if you've ever looked at vehicles, this goes for physics and chaos. The cool thing about this system is you only have very few inputs. Like you have a set throttle input. This is literally like going left and right on the steering wheel and it takes on a float. Like -1 would be like all the way left and 1 would be all the way right. And then you have like set steering input and set where is it, throttle input. Sorry, here it is. And throttle input would literally be the same as stepping on the gas. So throttle of 0 would be like letting the gas go, and throttle of 1 would be like stepping on the gas, right? So you have throttle and you have input, and then you have like handbrake, and that's it. So creating the AI, I had to do something very similar where I was updating the movement and I would just set the throttle based on a function here and set the steering based on a function. So all I'm doing here for the simple AI, which makes it interesting, is I'm actually tracing down and grabbing a actor and then finding whether it has a spline or not, and then I'm trying to stay along the spline. So if I click on simulate here, you see that this guy's gonna be driving around and you can put little ramps on top and everything, but all he's doing, he's just trying to stay along the spline. And I have a very simple logic that if for some reason you're getting too far away from the center of the spline, right, the target location, then you're going to slow down and you're going to try to stay there, right? So very simple logic. I'm not using any behavior trees or anything like that. I'm literally just tracing and doing very simple calculations to try to behave like a human, right? If you're going too fast, you probably want to slow down. If you're going too fast from your target, you probably want to, correct your steering. So not only is this very simple, but it's also very cheap. So that was the main idea, right? If I grab a couple of these guys and I hit play here, I'm just gonna hit play here. You can see that now, again, this is a very dumb AI, but it still tries to stay, it tries to stay with the road. You can just kind of drive around here. But it is using the exact same system that the player is using, so that's quite interesting to me. And so far, it doesn't even require a specific blueprint. All it needs is to detect whether the blueprint underneath has a spline component, and if it does, it'll just follow the spline. So hopefully you see kind of where this is going, right? So this is pretty silly, it's just following the spline, but this can be probably expanded to something more. Say maybe roads in a city that are already using splines, right? See where I'm getting at? Anyway, because this is a physics simulation, you can do really fun things with this, right? So I have a few blueprints here that I'm just gonna pull up here. And these blueprints basically detect whether a actor goes in and is using a specific interface, and then it changes some of the properties. So in this case, for example, this blueprint is setting the throttle, it's called BP slowdown, is setting the throttle to 25% and applying a negative force of negative 200. So basically, this is forcing the cars to kind of slow down. Think about this like the mud puddle in Excitebike, right? You want the AI to slow down. It'll actually force the AI to change its throttle to 25%. This would be the opposite. This is like a little boost. It'll actually apply an impulse of 1500. Again, really neat because we are following physics simulation here. So if I click on simulate, again, you see that these guys are going to start coming. When they hit this area here, you see that they're going to slow down a little bit. And then as soon as they hit this, you see that they're being immediately flung because I put like a ridiculous impulse here. So this is, again, more for fun, but because we're playing within the same simulation, you can do all kinds of things here. All of the physics simulation stuff, like applying forces, impulses, etc., you can do on the vehicle. And the player himself, because you're using the same simulation, you are, as the player, affected by it. So you can see here that I'm just going, and all of a sudden I just got this really, really big impulse because, again, I am using the exact same simulation as the AI. So that is actually, again, really interesting because if I ever wanted to include this in, say, a traffic system for the procedural city generator, and you're walking around as the player and you enter any car that's in traffic, you would be subjected to the exact same rules on the road, right? Because it's the exact same thing. So it's almost like killing two birds with one stone. You don't have to do separate things for that, like a player and an AI. So another thing that I wanted to do, and I did not show this in the video, was, okay, that's cool, but can they avoid obstacles? So that's interesting, right? So what I did is I'm gonna grab this guy. Actually, I'm gonna deactivate him and grab this guy, and I'm gonna move him to this area here to show you what I'm talking about here. You can see that there is no reference to any actors. This guy doesn't need to have an assigned track or road. It's literally wherever you put him, he'll just be, he'll just go ahead and follow it. But the next thing I wanted to do was add some basic obstacle avoidance. So what I did here is I added, again, these are two simple blocks. So if I hit on simulate, and again, this is super rough, but you can see that he's going to try to avoid the obstacles here. And it's very simple. You can grab any object and you can add the tag obstacle. And now if I go back to my AI, I'm going to go to the debug options here. I'm going to debug the collision traces. You can see what's happening here. And again, this is super rough, but I wanted to give you guys an kind of what's happening here. See that he's tracing and basically changing his steering input based on the trace. So if I move this here and this here, again, you can see that based on the traces, he's just going around. And in this case, he decided to come to this side and avoid it this way. So super primitive, but again, you can start seeing some work there on maybe having the AI actually avoid obstacles. So again, if you have obstacles or maybe other vehicles, maybe now you can have a very cheap system for the AI to try to avoid those things. Uh, Another thing that I wanted to add, again, since I'm kind of keep going here, trying to see how far I can take this, is what if you had more than one road? So right now in this example, you have splines and it goes from one spline actor to the other and it just follows the spline. But what if I wanted to have like a crossroads? Like in this case, I have like one segment, two segments, three segments. And you can see here, this would be like a crossroads. What I did is I created this little blueprint here, very simply called segment crossing, not very creative. I have a little trigger, and then what I do is I add in this map all of the different roads that are going to be overlapping this crossroad. So in this case, you obviously have three. And then I have a map where I can add a weight. So somebody suggested this on the last YouTube video, not for this, but for the NPC manager system when he grabs a random path and said, hey, maybe you can have like a weight where you can say, hey, maybe there's a % chance that it'll go in one direction over another. And that's actually really neat, because what I'm saying here is when the vehicle overlaps this, I want him to take a right turn. This is going to be long 4, and this is long 4. The weight of this is 10 versus long 3, which is this, a weight of 2, and the same road here would be a weight of 0. So in other words, what I'm doing is there's this vehicle here will pick a random location. It'll either go straight or take a turn, but I can now affect how likely he is to take a right turn or a straight turn, because I am having these weights here. Now if I grab this guy, and I'm gonna take this out so it's not that annoying, and I duplicate him a bunch, hopefully you'll see that some of these guys will actually go straight. Oh, there you go. Even though most vehicles, well, there you go. Most vehicles went straight, disproving my what I was trying to show. But again, because it is random, the vehicles will then pick a random way of going. Actually, I want to remove this. So I actually like this system better than what I have in NPC Manager, and I may basically port this to NPC Manager because I've learned a couple of things doing this. The other thing that I wanted to do was, again, if this is going to be eventually converted to maybe a simple traffic system for PCG, was that each road will have lanes, right? So maybe the road itself can have an offset range, and maybe you can determine the max speed in the road itself. So I added that, and again, very simple with some interface calls. Now I can say if a vehicle is in this road, in this segment specifically, the max speed is 400. That's I think 40 kilometers per hour, based on the units in Unreal. But if you turn right, this segment here is 900 up to 90, and this small segment here is 700. So what you can do is, if I grab this guy and I'm going to show the vehicle stats here, you can see when I hit play that the current speed and the max speed right now is 400. But as soon as he chooses this road, notice that the max speed is 900 here. So he's going way faster here because the road itself has given him a max speed of 900. And eventually, if we just be a little patient here, when he gets to this segment here, you'll notice that the max speed will be 700. It keeps flickering, so I know it's a little hard. But notice here, the max speed would eventually be 700 because the new segment of the road has changed to 700. You can see there's 700. So he actually slows down as he gets there. So now we actually can very simply control the max speed per road type, and we can add an offset. So if we wanted this road here to have an offset of, let's say, between 250 to 350, and we'll do the same here 250 to 350, and we'll do it here as well. Now what we see is that the car will try to drive on the right hand side with that offset. And you can see that I have a little drive on right tick box on the road itself. So you can see now that instead of targeting the middle of the spline, he actually tries to grab an offset between 250 and 350. So now if I had cars going opposite on this spline, maybe I can find a way of having traffic go both ways on the same spline road. So again, very, very early, but some of the experiments that I've been working on to try to control speed and offset, because again, if this eventually makes it into PCG, which is something that I've kind of wanted to do for a while now, is have a very simple traffic system, then this is kind of the groundwork that needs to happen. So yeah, that is pretty much what I have so far. And maybe this went a little bit too long, but I wanted to show you this little project. I never talked about a traffic system for PCG because it is far off and I still have a lot of work to do. So I don't want to make any promises and get people excited, but here it is, cat's out of the bag. I would love to, have PCG come with all of the features that have now in a very simple traffic system. And then if you combine it with the NPC manager system, which is way more complex than just pedestrians, but now you can have a full-blown city where with those two assets, you can have a city with pedestrians and then with traffic. And then based on what I have here, it would be using chaos vehicles, which are a lot more stable, and you could basically possess or enter any vehicle in the city and drive around the city with some basic traffic, and you would have some pedestrians. So that's kind of like the goal. For now though, I think what I'll do is I'll keep working on this on my free time as a secondary project, and then I'll probably release some form of this for free. And then when Unreal Engine 5 comes out, then maybe the update to UE5 for PCG can come with the traffic, because UE5 will have chaos vehicles on by default. So you won't have this issue where right now you have to like manually compile the engine for different versions, whether it's PhysX or chaos. UE5 proper will already have chaos enabled. So then it's going to be really easy for me to have everything set up. So when you download the UE5 version of PCG, boom, the city will have that. And hopefully I have some buildings already as nanite meshes. So yeah, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. I have been more active on Discord, so if you have any questions or suggestions, come to Discord and post on the channel. I've also been working on a UE5 version of PCG, and I've been posting some screenshots. I converted all of the buildings to nanite, and I'm slowly building this massive mega city to test out nanite and world partition. So come in and check out my progress, and eventually that'll become its own devlog down the line. So thank you guys so much for your support and your patience. Leave your comments below. If you haven't joined Discord, I'm going to leave a link in the description below. All right, guys, thank you so much, and I'll talk to you in the next video.